Hello. Hi,
Hello.
everyone. Thank you, Michael. I'm so excited about today's show. For those of you who are not familiar with my show, this is a weekly live for CityClips, a business newsletter that I've co-founded with Ali, and we are focused on highlighting everything related to business and tech in North Florida, especially in Tallahassee. So Michael here, Michael Tentnowski, is with FSU Commercialization, and he is going to tell us a little bit about his journey and how he ended up in Tallahassee. He has an entrepreneurial background. He actually started multiple businesses, and now he's helping others as well with their early stage startups in the tech and innovation space. So thank you so much, Michael, for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Julia. Appreciate it.
Yeah. So, okay, tell us a little bit about like how you got started in the business world.
Sure. So interestingly enough, I had moved from where I grew up in New York to Montana to go to school. And I went to the University of Montana. I had a great professor, Paul Larson, and he was head of entrepreneurship classes there. And he and I got along great, and he had me do some work with him. And basically, it was a business plan writing class that I did. And as a result of the business plan, he decided that I had a great business model. And I told him, you know what? I just wanted an A in the class. I don't really care. And he did the same thing you're doing. He laughed. He said, but look at the numbers. And so I did look at the numbers, and I said, yeah, but I was just pretty much guessing. And he said, no, look at the numbers again. So we went through a break even. And the numbers were great. And I decided to start that business. It was a private practice management system that we created. And basically what that is it was a system of managing doctors' offices, dental offices, chiropractor offices. And they all are notoriously poor business people. So I took over managing their businesses and captured a large amount of that business in the first 6 months. So as a result of that, making the story a little shorter, it grew and grew and grew. And I finally decided that when I met my wife, we got married and decided to go back to the East Coast where her and my family are at. And so I sold the business to a partner, and that allowed me to get into more educational entrepreneurship. And I started with Virginia Tech doing exactly that. So that's the short version. I actually had 3 businesses I started. 2 I do talk about, 1 I do not. So don't ask. I had a class the other day and they asked me what was that business, and I told them I don't talk about it. So that's the only way I'm going to answer that question.
But I'm not going to dig, I promise.
So at Virginia Tech, I started working with 5 small business development centers throughout the Southwest Virginia area. So it's all rural. And I help businesses, everything from bison and ostrich farmers, all the way up through high-tech businesses. And so that was a good experience because I had a very large territory. And from there, it just moved on to more educational institutions, teaching entrepreneurship and mixing in accounting, which is actually my formal background in education. So that's where I started.
Super interesting, because like, did you ever think that you were going to start a business before? Like, it sounded like it was like initially accidental that you got into the starting a business.
I think that's true, but I always had the desire or the drive to do that. I don't like working for the man, so now I am. But then you realize, hey, wait a minute, you got to pay the bills. Someone has to pay the insurance, and quite frankly, it's very difficult to not start a business as much as keeping it going. And when you realize you have all those expenses, and again, my background's accounting, it didn't make sense after the first couple of businesses sold. I really enjoyed starting them. I really hated running them.
Well, I think I just heard the other day too, is like the success or most businesses end in failure. Like, so it's better to get out halfway through, like, and sell it really before it goes down. Yeah.
That's true. I guess statistically, if you last 5 years, you're probably going to survive. But if most of them do not make it even 3 years, and then 5 years is really the cutoff point. If you can prove that you've got positive cash flow and doing well in the 5-year period, you're likely to move on.
Yeah, and it's really cool you have that financial background, because a lot of business owners don't get into business because of the management part and the financial aspect. They start creating things, they start building things, or maybe it's people. But so, okay, I know you've had multiple, like you mentioned before in our earlier conversation, you've worked with multiple entrepreneurial programs and universities. So what led you to come to Tallahassee? And I was surprised to find out it was like only 6 years ago. I thought you've been here a lot longer. So yeah, what brought you to Tallahassee?
Yeah, so it was a big mistake. And what I mean by that is I got hired by another company, a very large cancer research company in Florida, not in Tallahassee. And I accepted the position and I was ready to make the move. And then they got new leadership and said, you know what, we're not going to do that. So I was jobless. And fortunately for me, at Innovation Park, they were looking for an entrepreneurship director. And I happened to have the background that fit. And so I was hired at Innovation Park of Tallahassee to be the entrepreneurship director. And so I was back in the game, messing around with entrepreneurship rather than doing medical incubation over in Jacksonville.
And then I've actually attended a few of your events, and that's how I actually met you, through one of the programs that you guys had where you had people do like mock pitches, I think. And that was the first time I went to Innovation Park. I knew about the Mag Lab, but obviously most people in Tallahassee have no idea what goes on here. Now that I've learned so much in the last year about all the different locations, CAPS, HPMI, all of the different research / institutions and buildings. But so you know all about that, and you know all about SBIR, STTR funding too. So can you explain a little bit about what that is? And I attended a couple of your events, and it was really helpful to hear you speak about that.
So let me go back to when I was the director of entrepreneurship at Innovation Park. Innovation Park does a tech grant program where it's that pitch event you spoke of. And I believe it's $25,000 that they award to first, second, and third place pitches. And that's rather a broad category, although roughly it's in the technological field, but it can include apps as well and some other things that aren't really super high tech, just using on platforms and things like that. So it's all technology. It's just not going to be your hairdresser or your insurance agent or something like that. And so that's what I got started with doing at Innovation Park. And then 3 years into it, I got hired over at FSU in their commercialization office to do tech transfer. And that's simply trying to take that research coming out of the areas you spoke about, mostly all engineering, and turning that into a viable product for the benefit of society. And so I do have, my portfolio includes the Mag Lab, but also the Center of Advanced Power Systems, the High Performance Material Institution, the Aero Propulsion Mechatronics, all of the things that you might associate with engineering in the park. So that's what I do now. Although I think what's happening with some new leadership is I'll be segueing back into the entrepreneurial arena. And so I'll be talking more about I-Corps and, as you mentioned, the SBIR STTR program. So I'm going to go a little into the SBIR STTR because what I found out when I first got here 6 years ago is practically nobody ever heard of SBIR STTRs. And so I said, what are you kidding me? I mean, that's the number one funding source for small high-tech businesses, and it's non-dilutable. So you're not giving up a piece of your pie. No equity is being given away. It's the federal government that's giving you a chance to test a theory in a phase 1, they call it, and then test a prototype, build a prototype in phase 2. So let me go back. The SBIR STTR program is the Small Business Innovative Research, that's SBIR, and then the Small Business Technology Transfer Research, which is STTR without the B in there for small business. And what that is it started in 1982 under the Reagan administration. And since 1982, they've provided over $50 billion for startup companies in the high tech arena. So that's B with a billion, right? Every time I say that, people said, no, you misspoke. That's million. No, it's billion. In fact, they provide at a minimum 3.2 billion each year. And that's roughly 5,000 awards throughout the country. So the SBIR STTR program's been around forever, but again, nobody's ever heard about it. So I started doing seminars at Innovation Park about it, and we started getting more people coming out of the woodwork. And quite frankly, there's one company I won't mention locally that has received 8 SBIR STTRs, and some of those awards are over $2 million. I said,
"Ooh," I was like, "Ooh, it's yeah, no, 2 million still significant, obviously, for and support for the early phase."
Yeah, and again, so what's interesting is, let's say you have an idea to make a pen fly, and that you decide, I want to make a pen fly, and the flying pen could be used in a number of different agencies. And so I want to pitch this idea. So you can actually do a proposal in phase 1 to just based on a theory. You don't have a product, you haven't proven anything. You say, I have a pen that flies. Can I get it funded? You can get up to $250,000 to prove out your idea that your pen will fly. Actually, with the adjusted for inflation, it's over $307,000 you can get. And then if that works and your theory proves out, the data says, yes, you can do this, you can get a phase 2, and that phase 2 will supply up to, they say, 1.5 million, but it's actually 1.7 million if you know what you're doing. And so what I do is I teach people to know what they're doing so that they can get the additional funding. And so there's actually 3 phases, but it's kind of a misnomer because phase 3 does not include federal funding. It's when you go out and you make your pitches to venture capitalists and other investors, they will actually do a 1 to 2 match. So if you raise $1 million, they'll give you 500,000 for that match. So there is a component of phase 3, but it's generally outside funding that you're after.
Okay. And wow, that's so cool. Yeah. And when I was there at the I think it was Discovery Days last year when I was like, nobody knows about this. It's like, I was shocked. I was like, this is awesome. And so there has been success stories in the country, right? And I know for you, because I think, is it 12 out of 12? You've been able to help. And I the last event you were saying you can indirectly say with the last one.
Yeah, so I was 9 out of 10. And
9 out of 10, okay.
And the 10th one that didn't get funded made some mistakes that I tried to help them with. And so they resubmitted after we spoke, and they did get funded. So you might say 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
And I'm working on 3 now with
nice.
some entrepreneurs, helping them out, because there are certain things that you need to include in your proposal that are mandatory, or you don't pass one of their 3 evaluation criteria. The first one is automatic. It's done by a computer, and they call it an administrative review. And if you don't have certain words in your proposal, you get kicked out, regardless of your technological merit. And then the second review, if you pass that one, is sort of a general overview from the people from that agency that say, you know what, I think this could be moved on to the subject matter experts, which is the 3rd phase. And then they get people from all over the country that are experts in that area to review it and vote on it, and then you may get funded. So it's kind of an interesting process. NSF is one of the agencies that came out with something called Project Pitch. And because of cross-agency referrals, I suggest everybody try to go after the NSF Project Pitch, because you get a result. Well, you get a 3-page online form. It's 1,500 words max. And you get a result within 3 weeks. And generally, it's been about a week. And if you get that result, they'll either refer you to the agency which you can submit to that best fits that technology, or you can go with NSF and pitch it to them as well. So there's all different agencies. There's 11 agencies that participate in the SBIR, and then 5 of those agencies participate in STTRs. So I can go through a list if you like, but it's every one of the ones that we probably all know: DoD, DOE, Department of Education, Department of Transportation, NASA, NSF, as I said, and some others. I guess there's the Department of Commerce as well. And then there's Health and Human Services, which most people associate that with NIH, which is probably 95% of their funding out of that group. And then EPA is another one. So there's 11 that participate in the SBIR. And then only the top 5 are STTRs. So that's DOD, DOE, NASA, as well as HHS and NSF.
Okay. I have 2 questions. Well, one of them is about like how you said that sometimes with the STTR side, that involves an actual business, right? You have to work with a small business to qualify for that. I think I might.
So let me explain a little bit further. So yeah, the program is for small business only. So only what they call small business concerns, SBCs. SBCs are the only ones that can submit an application for funding, because it's all funded by the SBA. And so it's all about small business. The difference between the SBIR and STTR is under the SBIR, you can keep 100% of the funding and you don't have to use anyone else. So the small business can do all of the work if they have the capacity to do so. However, you can farm out to a research institution, including universities, up to 33% of that work. So if you need a lab or you need expertise from one of the research institutions, then you can farm out 33%. Now, the difference between STTR is the small business is still the applicant and they must do 40% of the work, but they must use a research institution, including a university, for 30% of the work. And they can use a university for another 30%, or they could keep it themselves. So that's 40% regardless for the small business, as much as 70%, but you must use a research institution at 30% and as much as 60%. So that's the difference. One you have to use, the other one you don't.
Yeah, no, thanks for clarifying that. And I guess I have some other different questions, like if from an entrepreneurial standpoint, like is there, and it's probably covered in your sessions, obviously, it's like if I wanted to start this process, I don't want to start something that's already out there. There's directories online, right? Like, okay, these are the things that already was funded. Do they have any proposed ideas that they would love to fund? Like, is there a library or directory on that?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Let me clarify again. Under the SBIR STTR program, you can't have a product yet. You have to have an idea. So they won't fund an existing flying pen that I mentioned earlier. If you already have something and you think it's going to fit within something that they're soliciting for, you're not going to be able to submit. Same with a patent. If you have a patent on something, they don't fund patented ideas. These are purely conceptual ideas in phase 1 that you came up with to solve a major problem that one of the agencies have. And so there is a site, it's called sbir.gov. And if you go to that site, you can look at solicitations, which is up on the upper tabs on the left-hand side. And you can see the various agency solicitations that are out there. And you do have to match what you're thinking about doing with a solicitation that's being offered. So there is no unsolicited proposal submittals. You have to respond to a solicitation that's out there. And there's various calendar year timeframes for them to release solicitations depending on the agency. Now, the only exception is what I mentioned before. The NSF has what's called a project pitch, and you can submit at any time. And I would encourage people, when you have an idea, get on the website for project pitch, spend your half hour to come up with the 1,500 words, or do it in advance so you can cut and paste, and then do it online, and you'll get a response within 3 weeks. And what that response is yes, we like your idea. Please submit a full proposal. So again, that's the only way you can do an unsolicited proposal, is an invitation to submit. And then the other side of the house is, well, no, you didn't make it, but here's why, and here's what you can correct, and please resubmit. You do have to wait a couple of months for resubmission, but you can resubmit within a 1 year's period of time on the same technology.
Wow. Yeah, obviously it's like it takes a while, right? I mean, to go through the process. I mean, how long does it typically take for you? I mean, do you just stay with your, I guess, client or whoever works with you? Is it like a 6-month process? What does it look like?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. Again, NSF is the only difference, where you can do project pitch and you'll get a response within 3 weeks.
Okay.
But then you have to do a full proposal. And building that full proposal typically takes about 50 hours and 10 weeks. And so I just throw that out there. Of course, it could be sooner or later, depending on the complexity of your technology. But I always tell people, plan on 10 weeks before you submit, because you have all these things you have to do, including numerous registrations at various agencies. And the biggest one is what's called SAM, the Systems for Award Management. And SAM typically takes at least 3 weeks just to register in SAM. So that 10-week is from the time you get an idea to the time you finally submit. And other than NSF, the other agencies will let you know within 6 months whether your proposal has been accepted. So this isn't an easy fix. You've got to plan for this, and you should really start now if you have an idea. Because again, you have all those registrations and other things you have to look at. And if you want to build a responsive proposal to their solicitation, then you have to look at the evaluation criteria. And you have to write your proposal based on that criteria and make sure you hit all the marks, because they won't even look at it if it's not in the evaluation criteria area. So, yeah,
it's faster with you to work with an expert, obviously, who's familiar with it. I mean, I wouldn't want to do it all by myself. There's no way,
Well, I mean, that's interesting, because there are people that help businesses do this proposal submission, especially with NIH, the National Institute of Health, because they're very difficult to win an award from them. I think their success rate ranges between 10 and 11% of successful proposals. But there's companies, and I know of a couple that are out of the area, they'll charge you anywhere between $20,000 and $30,000 to submit a proposal. But I have to say, their success rate is extremely high. One I know of is 100%, and their minimum is $24,000 to review it. I'm a little bit different. I only charge you whatever you have in your pocket at that time. I don't charge anything.
That's fair.
Yeah, I don't charge anything. And what I do is I'll help you through the steps that I know of, because I've been doing this for over 25 years, and I know what they're looking for. And I know a lot of the topic authors, or they call them the program managers, depending on the agency. And so a lot of times I can call them and say, do you think this is a good idea? And so that's something that most people don't have the advantage of. And so I'm willing to help. And part of my duties coming up with FSU is to assist small businesses in the area, trying to get more of these SBI or STTRs.
That's exciting. I mean, with the new lab here, obviously, it's like, I guess my follow-up question too is like, okay, so do you have more seminars coming up, or things that are, is this going to be open to the community to attend? Because I know it's okay. Because, you're working with the institution, obviously university, but it's obviously what you just discussed. This is for the broader business community.
This is definitely for the broader business community, and even outside of our normal service area. It doesn't matter where they come from, as long as it's Florida. I would prefer that, because what I'd like to do is increase the amount of awards that Florida receives statewide, because Florida is actually 10th in the country for receiving awards, which doesn't sound too bad. But just to give you an idea, California is number one, and California since 1982 has gotten over 42,500 awards, where Florida has received, I think it's 5,377 awards since 1982. So the difference between number one and number 10 is rather substantial. So I would like to move Florida up in the ranks, and I think we should be at least 7 or 6.
Yeah. Oh, completely agree. I mean, that was eye-opening when you showed that slide. I'm glad you showed that because it definitely stirred up my competitive side. And I'm like, Florida definitely should be up, in the, top 5 at least.
Right. And even the second one, Massachusetts, their total over that period of time from 1982 is only 26,000 to California's 46, so half, right? So, yeah. So it drops off quite a bit. So I'm trying to help technological entrepreneurs in the state to get these SBIRs, TTRs. Because again, a minimum of 3.2 billion a year is set aside for these programs. And I think we should get a lot more than what we've been getting.
Yeah. I mean, California doesn't need more money. I mean, it's just
actually their deficit's pretty bad because of, well, no, I can't talk about it.
But in terms of like tech and the ecosystem in Florida in general, like okay, let me put on my California hat. I was there in Silicon Valley in San Francisco when, 99, 98, like things were starting to turn around in a big .com era, right? Then of course there was a crash and everything. So being here in Tallahassee, and hearing the things that I am hearing among the tech folks and just learning a little bit more about the ecosystem of Florida, it's really neat to see looking forward what the potentials can be as far as positive growth and positive impact. So in the next 10 years, what do you think? I guess what would you say with your experience and everything? Where do you see tech going for Florida and Tallahassee?
Well, I think Tallahassee is rather unique because we're kind of late in the game for technology. It's always been an education town and a government town. But that's not to say that we can't do it. We've lost several companies to other areas of the state because we didn't have the facilities to do things such as biotech, medtech, pharma. But now there's a new incubator out at Innovation Park. It's full of laboratories for that kind of research. And we can keep those companies from leaving the area for better and more available facilities. So I think we're starting to really come around to recognizing what we can do for our entrepreneurs in the community. And again, it's not specific to FAMU or FSU. It's for anyone in the community that wants to work on a high-tech business. And I think to answer the question more directly, I think some of the things that we do in magnetics, in electronics, in sensors, in materials, in aeropropulsion, I think we really have unique assets that could really enhance the SBIR applications for any of the small companies that want to get into the game. So I think we're starting to really turn it around.
It's really exciting. And thank you so much for taking the time to talk about this. Really looking forward to seeing more for what you are going to do with FSU commercialization and even your involvement with the new lab and Innovation Park in general. So would love to have you on again next time. So thank you so much. Is there anything that you'd like to end with or something to share?
There is. Look for in September, there's going to be a proposal writing workshop that we'll have out at the Innovation Park. And so it's all about SBIR proposals and how you should write those. It's going to be a 1.5-day event. So stay tuned.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I'm glad you mentioned that because that last event at the lab too, in partnership with Innovation Park, the turnout was great. So do you happen to know where it's going to be? Is it going to be?
We'll probably have it at the incubator as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's get in touch for that. And I'm definitely going to have to ask you more questions because I'm curious now, like maybe I should try this out. because worth it. I like trying out different experiences, but they always say don't start multiple things all at the same time. So I'm trying not to start another thing on top of what I've already began. But yeah.
Well, that's probably wise. However, I will say this, just talking about multiple things, you can apply to different agencies for the same technology. However, you can only accept one award. So you can't accept two from different organizations. So you can actually apply to different agencies. So if you think it's NIH, but you want to do the NSF project pitch, you can do that as well.
Awesome. Well, for those of you who are watching till the end, thank you so much. Subscribe to cityclips.net because we're going to push out this event for sure, and before anyone else does, most likely. So yeah, thanks so much, Michael. I'll see you on the other side when I end this stream.
Thanks for having me, Julia. Appreciate it.